Hello, everyone. Welcome to my show. Today I have a very special guest, Mr. Robert DeKelaita, who is here from Chicago. So normally I've been doing for years interviews, mostly online, but I'm very happy to meet you in person. I've heard a great deal about you. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. So Robert is the principal of DeKelaita Consulting, where he advises business and nonprofit organizations. He also serves as a history instructor through the Assyrian Cultural Foundation and as an advisor to the Chaldean Community Foundation. Born in Kirkuk, Iraq, Mr. DeKelaita practiced law in Chicago for over 20 years. He holds a bachelor's degree in political science and philosophy from the University of Illinois in Chicago, a master's degree in international relations from the University of Chicago, and a Juris Doctor from Loyola University, Chicago School of Law. He is a co-founder of the Ashurbanipal Library and was the publisher and editor of Nabu Quarterly, a magazine dedicated to reporting and analyzing news relevant to the Assyrian community. His master's thesis focused on the origins and development of Assyrian nationalism, and he has authored several articles on history and politics. He is currently teaching a course on historiography. That's
Historiography, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow. Well, let me introduce a little bit how I ended up inviting you here.
Okay, please.
So we were getting... I have an X account. So I've been posting things about Chaldeans, and then Assyrians come and visit my page, and we've been having fairly healthy debates, I have to say.
Good.
And in the debates, we're actually learning quite a bit about each other. Yeah. So I had somebody reach out and said that they would like for me, I said, I would be very happy to talk to somebody, an expert in this area. And they said, well, I know somebody. And this person spoke incredibly highly of you, which I know about you anyways, but he said you would be willing to be interviewed. I really want to thank you for doing this, for taking the time and having the courage to enter into this topic, because it's important on several levels. It has created some tensions and even sometimes divisions between our communities, which is so unfortunate because we have so much in common. We have such a big history in common. And then I thought maybe if we have the opportunities to discuss these issues, then we can come to a place where at least even if we don't agree on them, we can get past them. We can get it out of our system, and kind of arrive somewhere where it's like, okay, maybe this is partly the reality. Maybe we either accept it as where it is, or maybe we can improve upon it.
Sure.
And so with that, I want to start with some questions that me working with the Chaldean community, just like you have been working with the Assyrian communities for years, are very important for us. I think in our case, what has created or feels like it created the biggest division is the sense that there are editors on Wikipedia who have gone in and changed the identity of the Chaldeans. Changing something like Telkepe from a Chaldean town to an Assyrian town. Particular famous people such as Maria Theresa Esmar, who identified as a Chaldean, changing her identity to an Assyrian. And then there was so much back and forth with that actually I think at this point it is a Chaldean unless somebody else goes in and changes that. So this is something that has been one of the major things. And the definition that was changed, it was where saying that the Chaldeans are ethnically Assyrian but belong to the Chaldean Catholic Church, which I've been looking into this and digging and trying to find how that definition came about. That is not really a historical definition. It's more of a new definition that was created with Wikipedia, it seems. What is the story behind that, and where did that identity stem from?
Mm-hmm.
If you have knowledge about this, because I think it started, specifically with regards to Wikipedia, it started around or after 2001.
That's a good question. But first of all, let me tell you that I'm really very honored to be here. And I feel this is my community. I don't distinguish between people that call themselves Chaldeans or people that call themselves Assyrians or Syriacs or even Aramaeans. Everybody is equal in my eyes as human beings. And I look past this veneer that we all establish, which is called identity. And I really like to see the humanity in people. As much as I love my community and my history, I'm also a big fan of humanity, just in general. And I think this started, to answer your question, long before Wikipedia. This idea of who we are as a people started with writers like Freydun Aturaya in the late centuries, Freydun Bet Oraham, who was in Urmia writing early in the 1900s. It started with a magazine called Kikhwa, which means Kokab in Arabic, which is star, which began in Urmi in 1906. And in this newspaper, it was called Ruzlama or Sparzona in Surat, there were debates about Akhnan Maniwach, who are we exactly as a people? And even though there was understanding, and the reason this came about, and this is very important, is because the community in Urmia became subjected to a lot of divisions within the church. At that time, everyone was a member of the Church of the East. So what happened was missionaries came, American missionaries, British missionaries, Russian missionaries, French missionaries. Some pulled members toward their side and others pulled members toward their side. So the Church of the East, with its properties and its people, was split. So there was a great deal of confusion on the part of many people who were thinking, yesterday we were brothers and sisters and now we're in separate churches. So what do we do? Who are we as a people? Yes, we use this word Suraya across from Urmia to Tor Abdin to the Nineveh Plain to deep in the Hakkari Mountains. Everyone used this word Suraya, but who are we? Are we members of the Russian Orthodox Church? Are we members of the Church of the East? Are we now Presbyterians? Because a lot of our people became Presbyterians. So the writers in Kikhwa began this dialogue. And one of the articles, which is a very seminal article that was written by a Binyamin Arsanis, Rabbi Binyamin Arsanis. He was educated in the Russian Orthodox Church, but he became an Assyrian nationalist. And he writes this article, Akhnan Iwach Aturaye La Suryaye Yen Chaldaye. We are Assyrians, not Syriacs or Chaldeans. That's the name of his article. And others wrote counter to what Binyamin Arsanis wrote. And then my great-grandfather, Hakim Baba Parhat, who is from Urmia, my father is from the Qaleta side, my mother is from Urmia, wrote a countering the other person who had written Suraya means Aramaya. Suraya means Aramaean or Aramaic speaking people rather than Athuraya. So there was this debate between these people in 1906 all the way up until 1909, and most people settled on the term Suraya means Athuraya. So this is where it began. If Suraya means Athuraya, then everybody who says Surayan, ila Athuraya. So some people would say, well, Keldaya ila, because a lot of people in Salamis, north of Urmi, were members of the Chaldean church and had been for over a century. And Martuma Odu and others who are very well-known people came from that church. They also agreed with this idea that Suraya means Athuraya and we should go back. Why? Because this was the age when people were digging up these ruins in Nineveh and they were finding out the great heritage of Assyria, and it came a rallying point around this idea, so they began to assert this in a more stronger way. And then, after World War I and after all the conflicts, people rallied around this idea with all the political movements. Now, this happened with people who supported the idea of Assyrianism, going back to the ancient Assyrian past. It didn't happen so much with people, say, living in the Nineveh Plain, who were in Tilkepe and Tiskope and other places. It happened more in the people in this urban area in Urmia. And this picked up. It picked up especially after World War I, especially after the Semele massacre, which yesterday we commemorated, and we commemorate every August 7th. And people had dialogues with each other. I mean, people in Alqush and Tilkepe are not separate from people in Urmia and Hakkari. You know, when the people of the Hakkari were being massacred by Badr Khan in 1842, in Ashitha and Tiari, where do you think they went to seek safety? They came to Tilkepe. Many of the families in Tilkepe are originally from Ashitha. Ashitha was the largest village in the mountains. So when they went to Tilkepe, they didn't feel they were going to a place different. They went to where their people were. So this idea, and sometimes it's unfortunate because it's sometimes not what we say, how we say it, the forceful way in which we do things towards each other.
Yes.
I mean, my brother and I argue. I'm a member of the Church of the East. My brother became evangelical Christian, and we argue, but he's my brother. I love him.
Mm-hmm.
And we know how to argue with each other. But sometimes people get angry and they step away from each other and say, okay, that's it. I want nothing to do with you anymore. And that's very unfortunate. And this is the thing that really bothers me, to be honest. And I always want to say to both, say, the people that pick this argument or that argument, wait, let's come back. There's a legitimate point here, and there's a legitimate point here. And we're all not afraid of the truth. We're afraid of how we impose things on each other. So if a person has grown up hearing this word Chaldea, there's nothing wrong with that. That's something I feel today. I can tell you honestly, if someone says Ana Iwin Chaldea, that he's my brother, she's my sister. Mm-hmm. I don't feel any difference. Suraya also is a word that all of us used, and growing up in Iraq, we didn't use any other word. We said Suraya, Surayan, and we felt this comfort with each other because we were surrounded by people who were not Suraya.
Yes. Well, this is so interesting. So I feel the same way at what you're saying. I was never offended. I don't get offended easily anyway.
Yeah. Good.
I mean, as like you said, I think the thing is to be human.
Yes.
And so, if people even not knowingly, whatever label they call you, but then you get to introduce yourself, talk about yourself. But at the end of the day, I tell people, when I wake up in the morning, I don't think I'm Iraqi or I'm Chaldean or I'm American. What I think is like, okay, I need to get up and, make coffee. My dog needs to go outside. Now I don't have to drive my kids to school. But before, those are the things we think about, right?
Yes,
when I get to my computer to start working, because my identity is part of my work.
Yes.
So, of course, it comes into the picture because I'm a writer, because I'm a filmmaker. So it's a natural part of my work. But if that wasn't, like my sisters and my siblings who have other jobs, that is not what they walk around thinking all day.
Yes.
I have such close friends that are Assyrians who, this is the thing, they also, it's not just the people that are trying to change the name or being angry or trying to, however, they're putting this conflict, but it's really the people that are paying the price also are the people that have no issues with us. We just want to live in peace and get beyond this topic to bigger topics, which this is what we'll cover a little bit later on. But it is getting in the way because it seems like, that's why I appreciate you coming and we talking about it, because I think that we represent the majority of Assyrians and Chaldeans who intermarry, who go to each other's weddings, who have no issue seeing either flag, when we are trying to proudly display our heritage in some kind of way or another. But let's go then, in this case, if we were to try to resolve something like this, and given that you have such leadership roles, okay, how can we create, because this is the way it's affecting the Chaldeans, is that when you try to go, somebody that is Chaldean that is trying to figure out something regarding their history, which for instance, including myself, what I have found is the way that this thing, whether it's through the internet or Wikipedia, the name and the ethnicity is being manipulated to the point where it seems like cultural erasure.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, for me, the concern. Not so much, I don't mind even if we're having a heated discussion and you're telling me, however, whatever the history is of the Assyrians, and I'm not offended anybody putting anything up about their history. And this, what you just shared with me, was incredibly fascinating. I would love to hear more stories like this. I don't get the chance because everybody's just, I feel like, in my sense, is the feeling of being on defense to make the statement that, no, we do exist, that we do have a history, and there is an ethnicity. It's not just a religious aspect of it. From what I discovered, at least, is that there is an ethnicity. And then there are Chaldeans doing the same thing with regards to the Assyrians. And so, and the problem, I think, with the Chaldeans especially, is that I have found not only a long history, but of more recent writers, as I had communicated with you before, whether it's Maria Teresa Esmar, whether it is Joseph Naim. Joseph Naim he was involved in the genocide. He was captured and tortured, and he came to the United States telling people about the Chaldean community. Ilyas al-Musali from the 1600s, he's the first Middle Easterner to arrive to the Americas. When I read their accounts, my feeling is not only a sadness of some of the things that they went through, but also a sadness that they're trying so hard to preserve their heritage. And here we are hundreds of years later. Also, it feels like an attempt to kind of erase that for whatever reasons. What can we do? How do we resolve that so that there could be more of the type of communication that we're exchanging right now?
Yes.
Unless if I say I'm Chaldean, I'm being told, no, a regular post, it could be about a recipe.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And somebody say, no, just so you know, you're not Chaldean, you're Assyrian. And I actually made a couple of friends that I think really like me and I like them, even though they tell me that because they're very cute about it. But there are very serious ones that I can feel them get very heated up. And those are the ones that I see the tides turn, though, when there is that open. Because before, people say, oh, no, don't get involved in that. It's so controversial. And I said, having a conversation, what's going to happen with that?
Yeah.
And these are my people. We've gone through the same persecution, oppression, genocide.
Yes.
You guys are my people in that sense, that we share that common heritage is the faith, the Christian faith, the Aramaic language with different dialects, and the region where we come from.
Right.
Okay, we come from Mesopotamia before the name was changed in 1921 to Iraq, and so we have that shared history that we need to honor somehow. And part of knowing how, being able to honor it, is to just kind of like address some of these things. At least I think addressing them will help people realize, like, okay, we acknowledge that they exist. It's not like somebody's doing something and we're just, one of the things, even like I remember with the Biden administration, some of the frustrations that was happening where it seemed like he was ignoring everything, right?
Yes.
It felt that's how the people felt. They felt like they were bringing things to surface and he was just not addressing them. And that reminded me of how I think our communities are feeling, like there's issues between us that just need to be addressed so that they can heal. Mm-hmm. There might not be a solution about this today, but I wanted to bring this up and see if maybe you as a leader, there could be some kind of joint efforts to kind of bring awareness to this and maybe, I don't know if fix it is the right way, or because the idea of that Chaldeans are ethnically Assyrian but belong to the Chaldean Catholic Church doesn't even sound right. It honestly, to me, it doesn't even make sense.
Right.
But I have other questions for you.
Sure.
So we can move on.
Can I just address
Sure.
one thing that
Yes,
you said?
go ahead.
Because to me, it's very poignant. Well, first of all, I define myself as a servant rather than a leader.
Okay.
Auda in Lishan Surah.
Okay.
But Miss Sharon Hanawa spoke at the opening of the Chaldean Community Foundation, And I told her she had such a great speech. It was short, to the point, but let me tell you what it was, because this goes to the heart of what I have been preaching for, I think, decades, which is that our oneness is beyond the names. She spoke about our culture, our Chaldean culture. She spoke about our hospitality, how we welcome guests in our house. She spoke about Lishanat Surith, how important it is to us. She spoke about how hardworking we are as a people, and on like that. And she didn't have to mention, I knew she's talking about my people. Okay, now how you define it, you define it as Chaldean, I define it as Assyrian, somebody else defines it as Syriac or whatever. These are recognized traits of a people who have been through persecution, people who have suffered a lot and who have come out of it, and they've come out of it in an extremely spectacular way. Who isn't proud of the Chaldean community all across the United States? However we define ourselves, the community that is here is a source of pride for all of us. And I tell my friend I work with, Mr. Martin Menna, who's the head of the Chaldean Foundation and the Chamber, I always tell him how proud I am of him, and he thinks I'm just joking around but I really am. And I really am very proud of the Chaldean Chamber and the Chaldean Foundation and all of our organizations here and the great businessmen and women and what they've achieved. And you're part of that effort. So this is a source of pride for all of us. So beneath the names, this veneer of the names, we are really one. We are one people with a variety of different approaches and different dialects and different ways of doing things, different churches we go to, but we really, in essence, are all one. When I see our people crying at funerals, I see my people, whether it's Chaldean or Assyrian, they're the same people. When I see them happy at weddings, when I see how much mothers and fathers care about their children, how much it hurts them if their children are hurting, I see our people. People joke about the Jewish mother, but I say Chaldean mother or Assyrian mother, they worry about their kids. They're involved in their kids' lives. Sometimes people say too much, but...
Well, and we resemble a lot of other even ethnicities. I mean, we can watch My Big Fat Greek Wedding, and
Sure.
you can laugh and
That's
feel like the similarities,
That's
right?
right.
You
But
watch
they
an
stole
Italian...
it from us. Just
Well,
kidding.
one of my favorite movies actually is called Shirley Valentine. Don't ask me. I was so young and fell in love with this character. The main character is in her 40s.
Yeah.
And there's a line in there. At that time, I didn't realize that this was happening, but it's a British movie. And she makes a statement in the movie that the wheel was invented by the Greeks.
Yeah. Okay.
And I did not know better at that time until, again, I got more involved into my writing. And then I realized, wait a minute, it's not invented by the Greeks. Then I went and got the original screenplay. It was based on a play that was later made into a feature film. A very good film, by the way. And I still love it. I'll still watch it 100 times. I don't care about
Shirley Valentine.
Shirley Valentine.
Okay.
But the interesting part is when I read the play, there was a line that was edited out. She claimed in the play to somebody that the wheel was invented by the Greeks. In the play, she continues to say in her head, I don't know who invented it, whether it was the Irish or whoever, but I just said whatever came out of my mouth.
Yeah.
That was left out.
Yeah.
So anybody watching that, including myself, who I was born in Baghdad, and I didn't know that the wheel was invented. At that time, I didn't know. Then I thought, oh my God, that one little edit makes that big difference. So sometimes those things, and it's a little bit sad because I thought, well, we're already, we're trying to share our stories and our rich history. And I used to, for a very long time, until actually pretty recently, I just put a Mesopotamian background because I wasn't there 5,000-6,000 years ago, so I can't say 100% right of anything.
Yes.
However, the more I read, the more I understood. I understood that my ancestors go far enough back that they wanted to maintain that name. When I read the authors that sacrificed their lives and that were oppressed and everything. And then I gotta mention something else. So what you mentioned, I'm sorry, what was the woman that you said?
Sharon.
Sharon.
Yeah.
What she said is very beautiful. The conversation that we're having here is wonderful. But there's something happening at the same time. And again, we need to see how we can address this. I'll give you another example. In April of 2023, I have a friend and a professor in Argentina who forwarded me an email that said that there's an Assyrian, there was an exhibit that's called Assyrians from Persia, Iran, to the United States from 1887-1923. No problem there. Okay. What really, I'll have to admit, this part bothered me, is that in the description it said of the exhibit, which is still available online. The exhibit was at Harvard for about 6 weeks. And it said the Assyrians are the last Aramaic-speaking group indigenous to a homeland between Iraq, Turkey, Syria, and Iran. The reason this bothered me, because I think like we sense the older we get, the attempts that were made in the past to erase our names through other ways. So you start feeling like feels like it's happening in a different way, not in a violent way, obviously, but there's different ways that kind of hurt. And I reached out to Harvard, by the way. They did not respond because I said, well, this is not accurate because there's other communities that are still speaking Aramaic. Right. What do we do with something like that? It does hurt. It does boil people's blood, especially if you are aware of the history, and especially where you feel for years. I have been interviewing since I started the show. I had mentioned to you in 2018. I didn't start off really as much with scholars or people that were focused on the Mesopotamian history, Near East. But in the past almost 6 years, I have focused on that area because I love learning about this and it was part of my job. But it was very interesting, the background. And I did see that there is, because of the even the term associated with the department, kind of leaves us out. Right. The last thing really we want, especially because of what happened to us and for the love of our ancestry, is to wipe out our names. This is nothing. The Assyrians don't want that. We don't want that, right? Nobody really wants that. How do we deal with something like that so that it does create a difficult opportunity? It kind of closes opportunities for discussions, especially when I emailed the director, the director in the Middle Eastern department that was the head of this, not saying that there are no Assyrians or they don't speak Aramaic, saying, but it's inaccurate. There is others that do speak that. But imagine this is a 6-week exhibit at Harvard University. So that to us equals attempts to erase our identity, our culture, right? This is really, I am here. I feel like someone like you can help. That's what I feel. You're not somebody who you are just coming and sharing a book that you wrote and okay, I wrote this book and this is the information. You're not promoting that. You're really this is the first time I meet you in person. I had heard a lot about you, but I did get a sense of who you are. But now, the little that we talked even before the interview, you calling yourself a servant, you putting humanity above everything else. I feel like it's people like you that can help in this situation. And I'm really sincerely asking, how do we address these factors in a peaceful way without tearing apart the Assyrians?
Sure.
To kind of make the Chaldeans inclusive in this, where we are being, if we're being pushed aside academically in academia, and then we're getting pushed aside on Wikipedia. And so there's this sense of like a threat that is happening. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. I of course, I fully understand what you're saying, and I sympathize with it. Let me give you a couple of examples. First of all, I know about the exhibit. It's the person behind it is Dr. Eden Nabi, who's a very educated. She's a very kind person. She's been involved with the Chaldean Foundation. She has donated money to different causes. She doesn't mean any ill will by that, but certainly I can tell you she does not mean any any attempt to erase or to downplay. the field of studying Neo-Babylonians or Sumerians or ancient Chaldeans, what do you think it's called?
Right.
It's called Assyriology.
Correct.
Now, I'm sure that they didn't mean at that time. It came about because the people studying were focused on northern Mesopotamia, which was Assyria, and so the whole field came to be called that. But which was a surprise to me because when I first encountered this field as a child, I thought, oh, it's the study of Assyrians. But Assyriology means the study of all of Mesopotamia. What did our forefathers call this? Like in the ancient Akkadian language, the land of the south was called the immediate, like before the Persian Gulf, it was called the Sea Land. And then north of there was Somar, and then north was Ekkad, and then the land of Ashur in the northern Mesopotamia. Nobody ever called it all one piece. So I guess what I'm saying is it requires a little bit of understanding and a presumption that the other person doing this doesn't always mean something bad. So dialogue is very important, like really sitting and talking to each other and looking at each other's eyes and seeing that we are all brothers and sisters in this dying people. Really, it's almost gone extinct because if you know what's happened to our people, especially after the First World War. I was just in Mardin last year, and did you know that there was a big Chaldean community in Mardin that's all disappeared? There's a church, it's almost empty every day. Thank God there's still a presence there. And you look at Hakkari, over 300 churches, destroyed in the Hakkari area, hundreds of villages sprawled all over from the Iraqi border all the way north to Van, the lake in Turkey. So that is like a bigger concern to me, and if my people know that, Chaldean, Assyrian, if they know that the biggest danger we have is assimilation in the West and disappearance from the East. This is kind of very, very important to know. And I think the name disputes, and I fully, by the way, I agree with you, like, our name wasn't mentioned. I felt that as growing up in this country. When I first came, the school that I went to was Fadi al-Ahliya in Baghdad. My priest was Qasha Jibrail, who became a bishop, and now he's retired in Australia, Jibrail Kassab. And when I first came to the United States, I would look up the word Assyrian Christian, and it would say, these are not really Assyrian Christians, they are Nestorians. And I was like, I went to my father, and I said, Bab, I saw this in the encyclopedia. What is this? Why does it say that? He would say, don't worry about that. But it led me to a long journey and to try to discover, and I felt the same way that, you felt, like there's this attempt to erase. And then I actually met a lot of these authors. I met with Chip Coakley, who said, this whole Assyrian thing is bogus. It's bogus ethnicity, he called it in his book. And I met with others. John Joseph I used to talk to, who said, look, we're an historian, we're not really Assyrian. He was a member of our community from Urmia, village of Enhar. But he said, look, we're not really Assyrian. That's his opinion, and I used to correspond with him. I disagree with him, and I, if we have time, I'll tell you what historical reasons why I disagree with him, but I didn't sense that these were bad people, I didn't sense that they were trying to destroy anything. Chip Coakley stayed at my house, he slept at my house, he's a wonderful scholar, he's contributed a lot, but I disagree with him, with his findings. And it's the same thing, and I think when we have a place to sit across the table from each other, when we eat with each other and drink with each other and talk to each other, I think we will come to a conclusion. And it's a process I am working on, by the way.
Okay. And you're proving it by being here today.
I hope I am.
No, you are.
And I hope we continue.
What you just said, even now, with regards to telling me about the person that was behind this exhibit and that this was not an ill intent, I literally felt a shift in my body happen, because I was holding this feeling of that, okay, based on a lot of the people, based on Wikipedia, based on other information, based on people telling me every time I say I'm Chaldean, no, you're Assyrian. Then like when it gets to this point, it feels like, wait a minute, this is really, it's happening before our eyes. And even though I'm not that type of person that gets so involved, I start getting wrapped up in it and feeling responsible as a writer, as a filmmaker, as somebody of Chaldean background. You know, we come from a society where our whatever our talent is, whatever God made us to be, we serve. We use it to serve.
Yes.
Even the creatives, we're not just like self-expression is just a smaller part of the bigger picture, which is to bring information, to bring awareness, right? And so just you saying that shifted something. I could tell in my body that like took whatever maybe a misconception, you know, even if it was like a 1%, it matters. This is how things start healing so that we can grow beyond them. Because I'm going to mention something else that's of more serious, okay? Sure. That, like you said, you have other bigger things, right? Well, and I'll tell you what probably, based on what you just said, I don't know if it was like maybe a year ago, there was a webinar by Dr. Salah Al-Jabari. He's a UNESCO chair for genocide prevention studies at University College London. I attended online because obviously I was here. So he had a talk for an hour. At the end of the talk, and it's recorded, I can send you the link. They asked if we had any questions, and they picked my question, the first thing that they asked him. I asked why the Christians were not mentioned in his hour-long talk on genocide. Imagine an Iraqi scholar that's in charge of he's a head of UNESCO for genocide prevention, did not mention Christian, not Assyrians, not Syriacs. I was baffled. And he primarily focused on Shia Muslims, who are the majority right now in the country, and somewhat included, to a lesser degree, he included the Yazidis. And his response was just as infuriating. He was trying to explain that it wasn't as important. He used the word he was meaning not that because it's like, well, as if maybe he's saying compared to the Yazidis or compared to the Shia, which it was such a wrong word that really infuriated me. And the reason it infuriated me because it matched the fact that he skipped us through the whole entire webinar, which the consistent genocide and the oppression and the persecution that happened, it wasn't in one phase. It was consistently. Every so often you get hit. The community gets hit somehow or another. And also when you realize that once upon a time, that whole region of Mesopotamia was the Christian Aramaic-speaking community that has gone from one extent to the other. And, you know, when I shared this with some of the people, they said, oh, well, you know, he's of course bringing up his community. I said, no, but he's the leader in this. He's not somebody just expressing his feelings. And plus, by then, I had written a book. I have a book, it's called Witnessing a Genocide, which, by the way, I brought you a copy today. And in that book, it was right after what happened with ISIS. And, okay, as a Chaldean, I included every single group that was affected by ISIS to show the ideology that even Muslims were affected by it. Of course, the Assyrians, the Chaldeans, the Yazidis, and other groups as well. So how am I, as an author who's just not really even trying to represent the whole community, didn't have the heart to skip anybody and to kind of show that, you know, this is not your average Muslim person who we are. I'm sure you have Muslim friends. I have Muslim friends as well. But we're not being able, I feel that having these conversations about the Chaldeans and Assyrians to help us get strong, to get past this and get stronger, even if I disagree with you. I can disagree. You said that you have things to share, which I'm sure you do, and then I'm going to share things and we're going to go back and forth for a couple of hours. But what we really need right now, and because I was invited, you mentioned Martin. I'd been working with Martin from almost the start of when he started the Chaldean News as a journalist. And so I used to be invited to all the major meetings where there was delegates that were coming from Washington or from Iraq, oftentimes because I was one of the senior writers, but also because I was fluent in both the Arabic and the Aramaic language, and so I could understand them even if they're not speaking English. One of the sad things that happened is after 2003, when the Christians were being targeted in churches, our leaders, Assyrians as well as Chaldeans, and they already knew this was going to be, there's something that's going to happen that's bad news for the Christian community. So there would be all these meetings where I would attend to write about it, where they were trying to choose a name that would be an umbrella to all of our names, without taking anybody else's name away.
Yeah.
Like Soraya, for instance, which means Christian. They couldn't make that. They could not come to a conclusion. Weakening in our position to the point where by the time 2014 happened, and thank God, yes, for our churches, and thank God we, at the end of the day, we do all uphold each other, but still the way we were affected, part of it is our fault, right? Over this identity thing that is almost like this tribal mentality that comes from this very region that we really, really love, right? Yes. For this particular person to really, I can say, have the audacity to go in England, in a university in England, and where it's filled with Christians, and just straight out give this talk and just totally overlook us. And for me, getting past these little they're not little, I'm sorry. I mean, this, I think it's a little issue in comparison to the bigger issues. Yes. And I think it's doable that we can get past it, so that we can approach this and say, wait a minute, how did this person who is the chair of genocide completely go over, skip the whole Christian community of Iraq, of the Middle East? Recently, I had a more personal incident where my feature film, Pomegranate, and it's between a Muslim family and a Christian family, and the Muslim family is Muslim, Iraqi, and the Christian family is so the people represent each other. And I had some of the members of the Muslim community force a talk to be canceled, and it's a very beautiful. Yes, it's a beautiful, very beautiful movie. It's just about women trying to decide about her hijab. Okay, then I had another incident that followed regarding the screening from that community, and to me it was like, well, my father brought us here to avoid these types of oppressive mentalities. And when I say members of the community, of those, because there's, of course, we don't want to group everybody together, but at the same time, we have to realize there are bigger things for us to deal with, and that is freedom of expression, freedom to be able, not to have that feeling that we had. How old were you when you left Iraq?
11.
Oh, interesting. I was 9 when I left Iraq, and I arrived at 10 in this country. But I have, we carry with us the wounds that we had over there. Yes. Those are the types of things that I care about. I care about women issues. I care about issues regarding the minorities in Iraq, the Christians, the fact that we came here for the very things that that really is associated with Christianity, the kind of freedom, because if you were to read the Bible, especially the New Testament, we are encouraged towards the very things that this country, encompasses. So these are the things that I feel the Assyrians probably have the same interests, yes or no? Yes?
Absolutely.
So I hope, and again, I so appreciate you being here so that we can, it's okay to continue that conversation about the Assyrian and Chaldean, because we don't want to stop people if they're holding certain grudges or certain frustrations. But I have found as soon as you release that and express it, you can move on. You can get closer to the next step, which is the other things about like canceling or oppressing here in the United States, or eliminating us from the picture somehow or another. Being able to have more of a political presence to represent our communities is going to be harder for us to have that kind of presence if we're not like bickering about this kind of stuff. That's my opinion.
I look. What you mentioned is very important, and I think this bigger dialogue with our people and Muslims has to take place also. I think, we were just in Iraq. I was with Mr. Martin Menna and the Chaldean Foundation and the Chamber. I went as the director of the Assyrian American Chamber of Commerce, and we had a lot of interactions. And, our presence in Iraq is not what it used to be. Our numbers have gone down from 1.5 million down to about maybe 250,000 now in Iraq. And there was so much respect, so much deference, so much honor paid to Christians that I felt we can basically ask for anything. In fact, Mr. Menna joked around, we could have asked for anything and they would have given it to us. But I think we do definitely have to have a genuine dialogue with our brothers and sisters who are in this other faith, because we have some very serious issues, legal issues. For example, if you're a male Muslim and you marry a Christian, she doesn't have to convert, but your children must be Muslims. If you're a male Christian and you want to marry a Muslim woman, you have to convert to marry a Muslim woman. She cannot convert according to the law.
Right.
If a woman leaves her husband, they're both Christian, and she goes after a Muslim man, let's say, for example, I bring these, they're sad examples, but they're real. And she marries a Muslim man, and she happens to have children with her previous husband, those children will automatically become Muslims because now their father is Muslim. So, there are a lot of laws like this that we really need to sit down and talk. And we did have these conversations for many years with, for example, Kurdish officials. One of them was the former president of Iraq, Bahram. I forget his first name or second name.
And when was this, when you had that conversation?
I think 2010 or 2011. And we've had these conversations again, and they're uncomfortable conversations because people who are, used to jurisprudence and they're religious leaders and so on, they say, well, this is the way we've been doing it for, over 1,000 years. What do you want us to change? Yes, we want fairness. We don't want to be disappeared as a community, as Christians, okay? So these are very serious issues that we need to have. And I think another serious issue that we need to discuss is intermarriage in our community. Now, I'm very proud of a lot of Chaldean women, Assyrian women, who bring the person into our community, and women are much better at this. We used to think it's the man who's actually the women are much better at bringing someone in and teaching their children the language and the culture and the heritage and the church rather than the men. What is it exactly? Maybe it's the nature of us as human beings. Well, my wife will take care of the children. But I think assimilation is a very serious issue for our people. And I remember, reading an article in a Jewish magazine. Okay, it was a Jewish intellectual magazine called The Commentary. And it used to be, no pictures, just I used to be very curious about reading what are they thinking, because a lot of stuff we share with the Jewish community. And I read this article about how concerned they were about intermarriage. And I thought, well, and this is more than 20 years ago.
Right.
And I thought, if, the Jews who we think is very powerful politically and wealthy and influential are thinking about this, why don't our people think about it? And I had a discussion with many of our people, like, well, what does this mean? Like, are we bound to disappear because we're in a much larger, American community? And then I saw all these courageous and strong women who whose sons take the last name of Smith, but who are, very Assyrian or very Chaldean. And I met a lot of people who would say, my mother was, and you speak Surat, and you're, in the community, yeah, my mother taught me. So this is an issue that is very important to me, because I don't want to see the loss of our people. I walked through Tilkepe with a lot of people who were from the village, and I saw how they looked at the houses that used to be their grandfathers, and they would point out, this is where Bi Shangu were, or this is where Bi Tela were, and this is where Bi Denha were. And it was so sad because there was only like 50 or 60 people left in the village. And all of these people who are very powerful and wealthy and are in the United States, and I wanted to tell them, guys, don't disappear. We don't want to see, this is a beautiful story coming from this very important village to across the world and becoming very wealthy and influential in the United States. But please don't forget your address. Don't forget where you came from. Don't forget your heritage. I really enjoy when people cling to their, not cling as in solid, unmoving, but cling to, Bruni, we come from this very beautiful heritage. Don't forget it.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful way to communicate with your children. I mean, I have, my children are not very cooperative, and the things I try to teach them.
I'm sure you can influence them.
Exactly. So what I realize is, I don't want to push something to push them away.
Yes.
So I just throw things here and there and just keep it in my. All you got to do is keep it in the house and be aware of what you're doing and put the intention out there. And I just want to say something as our time is running out, but. Regarding talking with the Muslims and your conversations with Iraq. And recently when the Prime Minister came and I had the chance to walk him through the museum, and I was very impressed how open-minded he was.
Yes.
So the way he shook our hands and the way he was so humble.
Yes.
And I felt like, what you were saying about Martin, and Martin is not too great with the language, but I'm sure he tried. But I did feel like I can sit with him and have that conversation. Whereas, to be honest with you, I feel like here, it seems like there's less, they come here and people just freeze in a time zone, okay? So I feel like the Iraqis of Iraq are more outspoken and they're ready to just tackle any topic. And maybe what we can do, just even right now by today, hopefully, is that we're planting seeds for that, to open that door to say, whatever conversation you have, not to be afraid to bring it forward, because it can bring awareness. And, we can look at it as something as fun. It doesn't have to be where we are in this way of just arguing the whole time. It's just, it could be playful. It could be healing. It could provide a lot of growth. That's how I look at it anyways. And that's how I feel of this conversation and this meeting that we've had together.
Great.
I thank you so much. We've run out of time, but you're going to be hearing from me, I'm sure.
I would be very happy and honored.
I think we need to have forums. Now we can have interviews online. We can create forums where we can have these discussions with other people outside of even our community, whether within our community, whether outside of our community. But you're somebody I can trust that can help the situation a great deal.
I would be honored. I consider myself a good bridge between, generations, between Assyrian Americans, for example, who have been here many, many years, and recent immigrants. And I've kind of fallen in the middle of, the Chaldean community and the Assyrian community in Chicago and Detroit. But I love being here. I really feel this is my home, and just as it is in Chicago, for example, and just as it is in Iraq,
Yeah. Well, we're very lucky to have somebody like you where you are.
Thank you.
Being
Likewise.
Such a bridge. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I know you've enjoyed this show. Thank you.
Thanks.